So I have to start with this because, you know, I was in Lagos at your refinery while it was still marshlands. And I saw it, you know, the start of it was 2016.
Yes.
And going to it now, I just want the audience, I want everyone to understand how incredible it is and what it took for you. You had to be brave and bold. You took so many personal risks. And I don't think I think we shouldn't underestimate how much effort you and your teams put in. Looking back now, and everything you've done thus far, how do you feel?
Well, I feel great, but we really went through tough times, also including COVID times, you know, so during the setting up of the, you know, refinery, when we thought about building the refinery, first of all, we really didn't have a clue of how huge this refinery is going to turn out to be. And I believe that was the reason why we went into building the refinery. If we knew what we are really going to get into, we wouldn't have started at all.
Is that a fact? Definitely, you wouldn't have done it?
No, really, it is a fact. You know, because, I mean, personally, I tell you, if you give me that opportunity to do it again, I don't think if I'm going to do it. Because I think I developed all my gray hair within the last within the last 5 years. I mean, it was really huge. We were facing one hurdle after the other. When we first started the idea, a long time, 2013, which we signed agreements with the, you know, full of bankers. Some of the banks, yes, they came in, you know, gave us, you know, loan. We signed in September 2013. We went to one location, we had a problem.
You know, I talked about loans in the previous video just before this very one. I mentioned to you guys that as an entrepreneur in Africa, the only reason why you should take a loan is to be a creditor, all right, in the shortest possible time. If the loan you're taking is sinking you further into debt, then that is a very, very bad loan, all right, and you should stay away from such. You need to develop financial intelligence, and this is one of the major issues that we have in Africa, all right. Let's refer now to what Dangote is talking about. He talked about loans. Now, this is a man that has a history of financial management, very good financial management, and has been successful at it, all right. So if any government in Africa is taking loans, it should be for the betterment of the African economy, all right, and the people, the indigenous people living there. That should be the first recipient of any loan, and not for just frivolous reasons that will keep turning the country or any country in Africa, you know, further into economic hardship. So let us take note of this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now today we want to go over a very, very interesting video, and the title is "We Went Through Tough Times Setting Up the Refinery in Lagos." This is actually an interview granted Dangote as regards the newly built refinery in Lagos. So as usual in this entrepreneurship series, sit back, relax, turn on the bell notification, leave a relevant comment and a like, so to help this video to be discovered by several other people on the internet, and let us learn for life and not for school. So let's just get right down to it, and you know, take note of some basic notes here.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I know we were in Lagos not too long ago.
Yes.
At your refinery. Has anyone seen the show on CNN with Alaji? It was incredible. So I I have to start with this because, I was in Lagos at your refinery while it was still marshlands. And I saw it, the start of it was 2016.
Yes.
And going to it now, I just want the audience, I want everyone to understand how incredible it is and what it took for you. You had to be brave and bold. You took so many personal risks. And I don't think I think we shouldn't underestimate how much effort you and your teams put in. Looking back now, and everything you've done thus far, how do you feel?
Well, I feel great, but we really went through tough times, also including COVID times, so during the setting up of the, refinery, when we thought about building the refinery, first of all, we really didn't have a clue of how huge this refinery is going to turn out to be. And I believe that was the reason why we went into building the refinery. If we knew what we are really going to get into, we wouldn't have started at all.
Is that a fact? Definitely, you wouldn't have done it?
No, really, it is a fact. Because, personally, I tell you, if you give me that opportunity to do it again, I don't think if I'm going to do it. Because I think I developed all my gray hair within the last within the last 5 years. It was really huge. We were facing one hurdle after the other. When we first started the idea, a long time, 2013, which we signed agreements with the, full of bankers. Some of the banks, yes, they came in, gave us, loan. We signed in September 2013. We went to one location, we had a problem.
I talked about loans in the previous video just before this very one. I mentioned to you guys that as an entrepreneur in Africa, the only reason why you should take a loan is to be a creditor, all right, in the shortest possible time. If the loan you're taking is sinking you further into debt, then that is a very, very bad loan, all right, and you should stay away from such. You need to develop financial intelligence, and this is one of the major issues that we have in Africa, all right. Let's refer now to what Dangote is talking about. He talked about loans. Now, this is a man that has a history of financial management, very good financial management, and has been successful at it. All right. So, if any government in Africa is taking loans, it should be for the betterment of the African economy, all right, and the people, the indigenous people living there. That should be the first recipient of any loan, and not for just frivolous reasons that will keep turning the country or any country in Africa, further into economic hardship. So let us take note of this.
With the governor there, so it took us 3.5 years to realize that, look, we're just wasting our time. We left there, we went to another site. The site that we went there was also another issue with the community, political issue, which sometimes is a bit difficult to sort out. And we stayed there for another 1 year plus. When we sorted out that, then now it came about, we checked the land, 70% of the land was a marshy land, so we had to now go and get what you call swamp boogies to remove all the trees. Just after doing that, because at that time we were busy doing the design. And what happened, we were told that we need to raise the entire site. The site is about 2,685 hectares, which is almost about 34 million square meters of land. Is huge. The fence around it alone is over 30 kilometers. So we decided to do the sand filling, and that one we had to bring in 4 of the biggest dredges in the world.
Was that not a clue that it was going to be tough? We're like, is this as tough as it's going to get?
I told you, if we knew what we were getting into, we wouldn't have tried.
Because then you had to build ports, and this is the thing.
We had to do that,
Ports.
65 tons of sand, and then they say, okay, we have to wait for 1 year. I say, hey, wait a minute, gentlemen, I don't have 1 year to wait. Is there any other alternative? So they gave us the alternative of what you call, compaction. So we had to bring in a Chinese firm to do what you call dynamic compaction. If we don't want to wait for the sand to settle, we went through that. And, after that, then we realized that all these equipment that were bought, which some of them are 3,000 tons of weight per piece, we had to build a special port because all the ports in Nigeria, they are so small to be able to handle the equipment. So we had to build a port.
So now you're going deeper into it. There's just you
Yeah,
can't turn around.
after building the port, then we realized that, look, hey, wait a minute, we also cannot remove them from the port to the site. So we had to build a special road that could carry weight of up to 3,000 tons. We finished that, then we thought about, okay, fine, well, the way that we designed of getting the tankers to come and discharge the crude into that won't work. So we had to now run 125 kilometers of pipes through the sea.
Yeah.
And what you have, SPM, simple point mooring, put a big capacity where in a day, the crude can discharge 2 million barrels a day each one. So we did that. And we finished that, then we thought everything was fine.
Like that we were over the worst, right?
Yes, over the worst. But then we now did what you call soil test. And in the soil test, it shows that we have the worst soil ever.
Just keeps getting better.
Yes, and then we have to do what you call piling. If you know, piling costs a lot of money.
Yes.
So we had to do 249,000 pipes. That's almost 250,000 pipes. I mean, we have a story building built in Lagos. It's about 18-story building, but we did only about 38 pipes. So that's what we built, and then we realized that in Nigeria we didn't have the capacity for people to supply us with sand, with the gravel, cement. Yes, we produce cement, so that wasn't a problem. But with these things, we have to now go and build a capacity to crush stones worth 800,000 tons per month, which now is equivalent to 10 million tons. And nobody had 10 million tons. Actually, we are the largest in the world in terms of quarry.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
I mean, I think to your point, you had to become the engineering, procurement, and construction company of your own refinery.
We did that
because there was no one that could help.
Most of the EPCs, like the Bechtels and Co.
Now, at this point, you can imagine, as an entrepreneur, engineering, I cannot overemphasize the importance of engineering. And one of the key benefits of engineering is that it makes you a master of all trades, all right? A jack of all trades and a master of it. Because it's one thing to be a jack of all trades. You can also, in the process of you being a successful entrepreneur and affecting indigenous and local development, you become a master and a potential, a competent, master of all. As you can see here now, that in the process of Dangote's account of building this refinery, he went through a lot, and one of which is engineering.
None of them, they thought, first of all, to start with, that we're crazy, that there are some crazy guys in town that, that are thinking about putting up a refinery, and the kind of money that they are quoting, $25 billion and all this. So we said that no. So we took up the challenge, and we set up a team of 340 engineers in India, and we actually became the EPC, which means the engineering, procurement, and construction of the refinery. Every single bolt and nuts we bought. So we did everything A to Z, and it has never happened in this world.
It has never happened in this world.
Never.
I mean, this is.
And
I
You know, thank you. We realized that why we were so determined in doing the refinery, really, because we realized that in Africa, we have 54 countries in Africa, and the 54 countries that we have in Africa, only 2 are not importing their petroleum products, which is Algeria and Libya. They are the only 2 countries for now that they are not importing. But every single country in Africa depends on imported petroleum products.
And which is not the best. I've also often talked about these importation issues in Africa. You know, Nigeria in particular has this insatiable urge for importation of items, flooding the entire market. You know, and then they'll start running after scarce foreign currencies just to procure these imported items. Why not develop and produce these things within from start to finish? This is the best chain of supply, all right, and even demand as well. I just hope that someday we begin to have millions and millions of good thinking minds like this, entrepreneurship minds like this, that can actually change the landscape and the thought line of Africa.
And to your point, I mean, I remember just generally covering Nigeria, one of the lines we would always include is Nigeria exports raw crude and then re-imports it. And, that was creating the subsidy issue. I mean, there was just so many things that came with that.
And also polluting the environment.
We're going to get into fuel quality in just a bit, but I want to ask you something, because I asked you this when we were in Nigeria, whether people wanted you to do this. Was there pushback? I mean, you said people were saying, these crazy guys in town, but was there active push and lobby for you not to build this refinery?
I think the luck that we've had by getting the refinery done is because people believe that we're crazy, it will never happen. So I think the people who were sort of sabotaging us, they were less concerned because they knew that these guys have entered into something that they are going to be finished. So they didn't really bother much.
So they thought you were going to fail?
Yeah, they thought that we were going to fail. And I must really thank a lot of our bankers for not panicking,
Including African Bank, yes?
The issue is that, I must say it, not because, President Orama is here, but I can tell you this refinery wouldn't have been possible without African Bank.
Yeah.
I think he's one person that has so much belief in the refinery himself, and then the other gentleman is late now, Herbert Wigwe of Access Bank. But with President Orama, he is actually more convinced than some of my staff. That's how, yes, he's more convinced because when we took him there, both him and some of his board members, now they became so much sort of convinced that, look, this is the right way to go. And, I must honestly tell you that, which I told you in the interview, even though I didn't see that part. I said that, without the likes of African Bank, African Finance Corporation, it will be very difficult for us to industrialize.
Yeah.
You see, because the issue is that you need to go to banks that do understand your language, do understand your own issues, your program. Forget about all the other banks coming to us. They're only coming for taking us to the market, raising bonds, raising whatever, and a lot of them, especially during the COVID, that they believe that we are going to stop somewhere. The COVID would have stopped us actually from constructing the refinery. They all left, but now they are coming back when they see
now that you're done.
Yeah, well, now the food is being cooked.
They've come to eat. They've come to
yes, the food is cooked, is on the table. So I think, but to tell you the truth, the setting of, I learned a lot. Because I know that 4 years ago, I was in Saudi Arabia during the fasting time, and I was invited for, iftar, which is breaking of the fast.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fale, who used to be the Minister of Energy, invited me, to just come and break the fasting with him, and I went there. So he just said, well, Aliko, I heard that you are planning on building a refinery. What capacity? I said 650,000. He kept quiet for a while. I said, well, is this Jobel somewhere just about 120 kilometers from Mecca? We're building one, and I think I would like you to go and have a look. We ourselves, as Saudi Aramco, were facing a lot of challenges, but anyway, we're proceeding with it. But my advice to you is not to do it.
Wow.
Because normally refineries are built by major oil corporations or sovereign countries. I said, but Your Excellency, unfortunately, we have already started, so I'm not really looking for an advice. I said, Your Excellency, we have already started, but I'm not really looking for an advice. So that was really how we continue. But tell you this.
And by the way, that's another thing that we should take note of. In the process of you aiming for a skill or a service, all right, a service rendering or a service that you want to give your local population or community, people will come and say all kinds of things. You should also put that in perspective. But what they're saying, some of them will be relevant, some of them will be very relevant, some of them will try to put you down, all right, because they don't want you to be better than them or be like them. So it's part of this set of issues that you might face. But I'm so happy that Aliko Dangote has overcome all these obstacles and is now successful at building this refinery in Lagos.
It was very, very scary.
It was scary. I wanted to ask you from a personal perspective, what did it feel like when you realized, it was just one issue after the next, and then you're building ports and you have to buy all these cranes, and it was just, the challenges compounding every single year, and the price tag increasing to $19 billion, most of which was your money.
Yes. Well, when you look at it, when we're building the refinery, first of all, we knew that, yes, if we had gone with the idea of doing a project financing, the international banks would have actually shut it down. Shut it down in the sense that they might have asked me for my great-grandmother's certificate of birth, which I don't think I will be able to find it anywhere. So what we did was to go in terms of borrowing the money based on our own balance sheet, and borrowing based on our own balance sheet. At that time, Naira was very strong, everything was strong, and that was how we went through. So we got the money, we borrowed the money based on our own balance sheet.
So the issue of this borrowing is coming up in this conversation again. Don't forget what I said previously. Never borrow except you know that what you are investing in is going to make you a creditor. Alright, like for instance, now look at this man now. He's talking of borrowing from banks because he knows that this is a service that is needed by people, by the local population, and there is also a very high level of promise of returns on investment. Alright, I don't buy this idea of African countries going to queue up at the World Bank or IMF to collect loans. I recently heard, and perhaps I'm going to review that video, of how Russia, despite the sanctions from the Western countries, the economy of Russia is doing well, fantastically well. And that is because they have decided to focus on on certain countries that they've not even looked at for decades or for years, perhaps for even centuries. All right, and they're doing fantastically okay without the help of any external force or influence. So this is the kind of thing we need in Africa, particularly Nigeria. We need leaders to desist from taking unnecessary, careless loans. All right, that will make them enslaved, keep their economy enslaved.
How much did you borrow?
I think we borrowed total about $5.5 billion, but we paid also a lot of interest as we go along, because the project was delayed because of lack of land. Also the sand filling, it took a long time, almost 6 years or so. We didn't do anything. So it was actually 5 years. It was actually in 2018 we started. We have borrowed that much. We have actually, of course, paid interest and some principal, about 2.4. So we had, yes, we've done very well. We now have only about 2.7 billion left to be paid. So we've done very well for a project of that magnitude.
I also want to talk practice.
So he has 2.4 thereabout left to pay off. I mean, and he has not even started yet. So when the production starts, it's most definitely going to be a high return on investment.
Basically, what this means, Nigeria, exporting its raw crude, and now I want to talk about how you've disrupted the value chains, the supply chains in Nigeria, and whether the local oil producers, even the IOCs, are selling their crude fully to you, and what that means for the supply chain of refined products into Nigeria, and whether there's been pushback. There's a lot of questions there, but you know where I'm going with this.
Well, Eleni, in a system where for 35 years people are used to counting good money, and all of a sudden they see that the days of counting that money has come to an end. You don't expect them to pray for you. Of course, you expect them to fight back. And I think that is the process that we are now really going through. But the truth is that, yes, the country,
I mean, how can someone be living on... I mean, you shouldn't... I don't know why... How to even put this? Why should people be living off things that are not viable? I mean, you have some people in Nigeria that have been living on on the backs of the suffering of an entire country, over 150 million people, over 200 million people. Okay, some of these Nigerians, there are some other Nigerians that had the opportunity of changing things around. I mean, there are other government-owned refineries like the ones in Port Harcourt, Warri, and in Kaduna, but these things, because of ineptitude and carelessness, have been rendered useless. And now Nigeria has been, over the years, importing its raw crude oil instead of refining it as a finished product and earning 100% of its own income. This is more of modern slavery. And the innovation that this man has brought to this industry now really defines a very, very good landscape. And those people that have been responsible for eating off the backs of the suffering of the decaying infrastructure, I don't know what kind of a mindset they would have, or they must have had before now, because these things, some people, some Africans, they give up themselves to be sellouts and work against their own people, and this is not the best. And that's exactly what Aliko Dangote is saying right here. You see how people like this all over the place, who don't want the good of the land, they only want people to be suffering while they are eating off a chaotic system. And when you eat off from a chaotic system, eventually the chaotic system might come for you. That is just it. It's just a simple logical instance.
Sub-region and also the continent, sub-Saharan Africa, need this refinery. And I think, so you expect them to fight through non-supply of crude, non-purchase of the product, but I think it's all temporary. We'll get there.
Did you price in the fighting back? Did you think that was going to happen?
But I didn't price. Well, I knew that there would be a fight, but I didn't know that the mafia mafia in oil, they are stronger than mafia in drugs.
Just to repeat
So-
that.
Wow, that is a very strong statement. The mafia in oil is stronger than the mafia in drugs.
Mafia and oil are stronger than the mafia and drugs.
I can tell
Is
you
that a
for
fact?
Yes, it's a fact.
Did you
Because
know
see,
the mafia and oil existed before you got into this?
I know that, yes, they existed, but not as strong as the way that I've faced them. I mean, they're very strong.
Is this a global mafia? Is it
Both.
local mafia?
There's a local one, there's a global one, so it's a mix of. It's all mix of.
It's a mix, and then did they try and sabotage you in any point?
They tried all sorts, but like what I told you in our interview, I told you that I'm a person that I've been fighting all of my life. So I think it's part of my life to fight.
And you've won this fight, clearly. Have you won this fight? Is it over?
I think eventually we won't. We'll end up winning. You know why? Because the population and the government will be on our side. Because what we are doing is right.
There's one thing that I get concerned about when I hear things like the oil mafia or the international traders or whatever may be trying to interfere with Africa industrializing. It's not just with your oil refinery. It's a lot of other industries that get pushback there. And I ask this question, I think you're the best person to ask. Does the world that is benefiting from quality raw commodities want the continent to truly industrialize, where you move industrialization into Africa? And how much pushback have you really seen on this path and journey?
Well, there's quite a pushback. First of all, you have heard what Jeffrey Sachs said. What he said, is that I don't believe if the West want us to progress in terms of industrialization. Industrialization is something that is the basic that we need. We need to produce what we consume.
Yeah.
But I don't think if there's any support coming from the West. As a matter of fact, during the COVID period, some of the international banks really were looking forward to making sure that they push us into default of our loans so that the project will just be dead. And that didn't happen with the help of banks like Afrexim Bank.
President Orama with us today.
So, that's what I keep saying, that look, for us, I think we need to make sure we get together as, Africans. And then also, I must thank President Orama of Afrexim Bank with his management in trying to bring Africa and the Caribbean to sort of work together, because that would be fantastic in terms of our growth.
Well, you're here, which means
Yes.
I'm wondering
because,
what conversations you're having and what you're thinking about this
we
Afro-Caribbean.
produce quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it now, I don't know the exact price, but I know the price in the Caribbean in terms of petroleum product is very high. So we produce it cheap. We can always bring it here. We can set up a terminal, and we'll be able to feed their needs.
So what do you need to make that happen? In terms of tariffs, bilateral agreements, what do you need from a policy perspective?
We'll have a bilateral agreements with them, and also, bringing in stuff from there is not more than 18-20 days maximum. And then we need to set off a terminal. Once we set up a terminal, they will have a very, very cheap oil. They will have a cheap energy. And by having cheap energy, their own economies will grow faster.
Sounds like you're really going to upset the oil mafia.
Well, it's not only about the oil. We now have a capacity of almost 52 million. By end of next year, we'll be at 62 million of cement capacity. And we are not only saying that we can import, we can bring it from Nigeria or from Africa. If they have limestone with energy here, we can also produce what can satisfy them. We've done that before in Africa, and we should be able to free them off from the shackles of other people.
Brilliant. It would be remiss of me not to ask, what's the timeline on that, do you think?
If we have the ingredients, the limestone, additives, and level of power, is a 28 months maximum. So 28 months maximum, they can all be self-sufficient. They don't have anybody to hold their neck in terms of squeezing them, making them to pay an arm and a leg.
Yeah. I love this.
Yes.
You're squeezing the necks. You're giving me so much. I'm going to keep on prodding. Can you give us names? I need names. Okay.
But that's also, like what I said, 25% of our fertilizer that we produce goes to the US.
Yeah.
So instead of, we'll take some to the US and we can fully satisfy the needs of the Caribbean countries in terms of urea, and we're going to get into phosphate and potash. So definitely we want to have that kind of cooperation with them so that, they will believe that yes, President Orama taking them and bringing Africa with the Caribbean countries together, makes sense. And it's going to really make sense going forward. I mean, it's not going to be a free stop, but everybody will be happy. It will be a win-win between us and them. And then it will also open up, because, I mean, I haven't been to Bahamas for maybe about 32 years or so. But what I've seen here, I came here to spend only a day. I was supposed to leave this evening. Okay, President Orama said no, we should stay. So I think I'm also enjoying the place, so I'll be here till Friday.
I want this to sink in because Alaji said something important, that Nigerian-made fertilizer.
Now, let me make this point abundantly clear to everybody on the internet. Africa has suffered immensely from slave trade. All right, those guys that were involved with slave trade thought that they were going to hurt Africa for good, all right, and put them down. But look at what is happening now. The advent of an entrepreneur in Africa, in Nigeria precisely, in Lagos, is now reconnecting back the diaspora and even affecting, our African brothers and sisters all the way in the Caribbean and the US and beyond. So this, should tell us, and this should go deep, that there is nothing impossible for you to do if you only believe.
Finished packaged completely.
Yes.
Is being exported to the United States.
US, Brazil,
and that is
Mexico.
amazing. That is a finished product from the continent being exported to the US.
The importance of finished product cannot just be overemphasized. Finished product is very important. How can we have been living off exporting raw resources without finishing them in processing? This is just this has been very, very apparent. But we are happy that the advent of Dangote Refinery now is bringing to end all these things.
Yes.
It's these stories that are phenomenal, and you think about how much more can be done. How many Nigerians in the room? Show of hands. Okay, you're going to appreciate this question.
Yes.
The subsidies have been removed. Petrol's expensive, yes?
Fertilizer,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
There's no subsidy in fertilizer at all.
No, not in fertilizer, but I'm talking petrol now.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask, because now we know there's lots of Nigerians, and there is an important question. With your refinery, is that going to help bring down the prices at the pump for our fellow Nigerians here?
The issue of gasoline is totally a different issue. That's one is being dealt up by the government. But let me give you an example. In the diesel, which is where the industry is transported and everybody consume. When we first started, it was at 1,700 naira, and the conversion is about maybe 1,200 then. And immediately when we started, we brought down, within 2 weeks, we brought down the price to 1,000 naira. We took it to 1,200, from 1,200 to so we have given more than 60%, drop in price. But even now, with the currency back up to about 1,500, the price of diesel is still below 1,200. So there's a big improvement from 1,700 to to 1200.
That's incredible. So let's play out the scenario.
And it's available. So we are not living hand to mouth anymore, and the country doesn't have strategic reserves in terms of petrol, which is very dangerous.
It is.
But in our own plant now, when you came, we had only 4.78 billion liters of various, tankage capacity. But right now we're adding another 600 million. So effectively, as we go forward, the refinery will be the strategic reserve of the country. Brilliant. In terms of petroleum products.
There's something, we were talking and you wanted to talk about fuel quality now.
Now, I'm happy that he talked about the price reduction. This is very good. Once there is local production of finished products, the local population should benefit from reduced price and accessibility.
African, I don't know how many of you here in the audience know that there's something called, African quality.
Yes.
African quality fuel, and you know what that is? Very dirty, very polluting fuel.
Yes.
High
it is very
sulfur.
High sulfur,
So what's happening
very
there?
polluting, and also when you look at it, that's why especially in Nigeria, recently in the last few years, we've been having cases of cancer.
Yes.
And most of these cases, cancer cases, they are to do with the bad fuel that we've been using. So I will advise even here, you should check the quality, what is being dumped in your own region in the Caribbean. Because quality is key, is very, very important. You can see, last 2.5 weeks or so, the Belgian government banned export of anything over and above 10 ppm, because that is what they consume. What they said, okay, fine, from Antwerp, nobody is allowed to export what we don't consume domestically, which is very good.
So just so you understand, it's 10 parts per million of sulfur.
Yes.
So what is the parts per million of sulfur in African quality fuel?
We bought one in June from one of the trading companies, and it was actually 3,000.
3,000.
Yes.
So now you get into this business, you realize that the fuel quality is really awful coming into the continent. So just so we understand the supply chain, Nigeria exports good quality raw crude and re-imports.
In fact, Nigeria's crude attracts the most premium.
The most premium.
So that's how good.
And yet imports the dirtiest.
The dirtiest, yes.
I don't even.
That's very, very appalling. Can you imagine? Now, if you're exporting a very good crude oil that is of high quality with less, or probably the most cleanest content, with less sulfur, less corrosiveness, why should you now be importing the bad ones? That means the people that are actually taking these things out and encouraging the raw export of these raw materials are actually using it for themselves, and they are bringing in the bad ones, not even the refined ones. Wow, this is so deep. This is so very deep.
I don't know what to say on that.
Well,
is that regulation?
Most of the other, it's not regulation, but now there's regulation, so it is, upon the regulator to enforce the regulation.
And it's very important to do that. There's again the trading companies that are doing this, and the contradiction and the hypocrisy on climate change. And
both local, international, yes.
And all of that. One of the titles here that we're looking at is Global Africa, and what that means. And what that means for the continent, and a unified African voice on the global stage. What does that mean for you?
I think it means a lot, because when you look at it, majority of Western world, when they want to do agreements, they try to do what you call divide and rule, rather than they agreeing with either East African Union to have one single agreement. They go to the weaker countries and sign an agreement that is not favorable. And what I would like to see is for us to now have a very strong Africa, where now the intra-trade is going to be at about 65-70%. Because you see, what they have done and what they have achieved to do is to make sure that, yes, they encourage us to disagree with each other, which is not.
And which is very, very, this guy, what he's actually talking about now is has strong validation. It has been validated because these guys, I keep telling people, even in the comment section in some of my videos, we should stop being tribalistic in Nigeria. All right, a time is coming when even elections will not be affected by a tribe. All right, because what we need in Africa is a singular person, our brother, our sister, that can rule us and give the best service and be the best, take the best decisions irrespective of the tribe. Because these external forces, they are aware of the lines being drawn by tribalism and all that, tribes and ethnicity and all that. But the moment Africa rises from being tribalistic and ethnic based, development comes unfettered.
Right. Because today you are saying that, okay, fine, you want to stop. I mean, it's like what I told you last 2 weeks in Rwanda. You know, we're sitting having a chat with the French guy, Patrick Pouyanné,
Yeah.
yes, who ran Total. I said, Patrick, as a French citizen, he has more access to Africa than myself. So, and when you are talking about a small company, we too, by this year, with the help of our banks, will reach a stage where hopefully, our turnover, our revenue will be in the excess of $30 billion. But I need visas all over the
How
place.
many visas do you have in your passport right now?
I need about 35.
35 visas to
Yes.
travel across Africa as Aliko Dangote.
Yes.
Yes. There's no hope for us.
Well,
If you can't get into African
I
countries,
can
there's no hope.
tell you something. We are doing something, we in the private sector, and I think we're going to challenge some of our leaders to make sure that we remove all this thing about borders, about free movement of people, free movement of goods, and.
Do you believe that can be done? I mean, we were.
The colonialists, when I was talking, I reviewed Dr. Arikana's video. These colonialists, these Western powers that actually splitted Africa, this is one of their targets or their exploits to ensure that Africa remains forever divided, so that they can be the ones taking the lion's share out of it in the midst of the confusion and the chaotic systems in the continent. But this is going to end very soon.
Listening to His Excellency Wamkele Mene before this conversation, do you agree what he says that it's going to take time if you compare it to how long it took Europe?
I think no. I really don't agree with His Excellency Wamkele because time has changed. Things are on a very fast track. Already we have what you call the regional markets. So once the regional markets, if they work, we should make them to work. Because if you go to like ECOWAS, yes, ECOWAS is working, but maybe we have one country who is, that's messing around here and there. But we can sit down and talk to them the benefit of having an AFCTA. Having an AFCTA is going to help a lot of these smaller countries, whereby when they produce goods, they have market for it. Like now, I was telling somebody came to my house last few days, and he said, "Oh, you have very nice flowers." I said, "Yes, I'm sure they are from Kenya or Ethiopia, but the guy who normally brings them, he brings them from Antwerp."
Wow.
Which is wrong. So they carry all these things from Africa, take them to Europe. From Europe, now they bring them and distribute them within Africa. There's one saying, that they always say, look, when you import things into your country, you are importing poverty, exporting jobs out. So we have to stop it.
This is a solid fact. What Dangote just said now is completely accurate.
I totally agree. We've been covering these stories so much, and it just, what is it going to take? It's the border posts. There's so many things that need to happen, and of course, President Obama and his team are doing what they can. But policy needs to trail, and it needs to happen quickly, because border posts are a disaster.
It can happen. So what does it cost now? For example, you say, okay, fine, all Africans moving in Africa, they should even get visa on arrival. You've already done that to the Canadians, you've done that to the British, you've done that to the European Union and Americans. Why are we different? Why should I now go and apply for a visa?
Because it's sad, because these passports hold better currency than African passports.
It's not about
and
currency.
It's like, how do we change that perception of ourselves on the
It's not
continent?
about currency. Most likely, if I go to, let me not say Rwanda, but if I go to maybe Angola, I might end up spending more money than a British person who has a budget. I might not have a budget. Maybe I'll go there and spend more money.
That's true.
But they're asking me, and they're asking me to get a visa. He might not invest. And what I keep telling people is that, look, we as Africans, please, don't be deceived. No foreigner can come and make your continent great.
Yeah.
It must be the domestic. It must be the domestic investors. Domestic investment is what actually attracts foreign investment.
Okay, now you're seeing what I'm saying now. And that's exactly what Aliko Dangote is talking about. I've been talking about local development, indigenous, and that includes the language too, all right? It is the local language that will develop the people. Even as I teach science, engineering, and mathematics, all right, in this channel, and I talk a lot about my primary focus is about software engineering and skill development, human capacity in development, all right? I always make point about local development. I once talked about the Yoruba language, that more attention needs to be given to this language, so that people in schools, primary, secondary, and even university will be using this language as a better means of communication. And we should just dump these foreign languages and their tests and all that. All those validations they are junks. In my opinion, they are junks, and I pray that this video that I'm producing will get to the right authorities in Nigeria, in the ECOWAS, in the African Union, so that, changes will be made, policies will be changed, so that African languages will be entrenched and will be much more, given its proper position for local development and for indigenous development. This is very, very important, and that is the point that Dangote is also making in this respect, that no foreign language can ever develop you. And perhaps that is why most African countries, and particularly Nigeria, is still in a loophole of economic mess, because we keep talking of foreign language, all right, and foreign things, and none of these foreign things is going to develop us. Let us just take it. It's as simple as that.
So there are a lot of South African companies that have failed in Nigeria. You know this, right?
A lot, yeah.
A lot.
Yes.
But you also said, I want to repeat something you said a while back. Nigeria is one of the best kept secrets. A lot of foreigners are not investing because they're waiting for the right time. There is no right time. Do you still stand by that?
I still stand by that. There's no really right time. No right time.
There's no right time.
No right time. Because if you get there, you should do your proper investigation. You should do your research.
When I talked about the Zynox, the CEO AK, I mentioned how he left the United Kingdom and he came back to Nigeria to invest in Zynox computers. And look how good and how successful he has become. So for those of you still having this reel of jackpot, nobody is telling you not to jackpot, but the issue is that the indigenous entrepreneurs, have gone ahead. They are making it far ahead of people who have even immigrated and become second citizens, or having second passports in other countries like Canada, the US, and the likes. Are you getting it? We need to change our mentality about these things and see where actually God wants us to be, so that we can prosper and be at our best.
You should talk to credible bankers. They will advise you of what to do and what not to do. So I'm sure, fine. And as we go along, I'm sure that our bankers are also going to recapitalize and make sure that, make sure that we don't need international banks, because they're not going to add any value. I would like to see in the next 2-3 years, Afrexim Bank should double their capital. African Finance Corporation should double their capital. Once they do that, then we have real partnership to be able to make Africa great.
You know, I didn't mention this. I also went to the cement plant.
Yeah.
Your cement plant was fantastic. I was very excited there. I have to say.
There, yes.
I did, I went. And you said that cement plant in particular produces more cement than the whole of South Africa.
That particular location,
yes.
We produce more cement than South Africa, yes.
So the other thing I wanted to mention is going to all your sites is that you generate your own electricity. So you don't put pressure on the grid.
No, we don't.
So when we're talking about truly industrializing the continent and people here wanting to become industrialists, you have to start becoming energy independent and efficient when you're doing this, right?
You see, the issue is that, like us now, we produce about 1,500 megawatts of power for self-consumption. But if this thing is beneficial and it makes sense, there will be people who will concentrate on actually generating the power, so it will be part of your cost. There are a lot of people that are doing industrial parks, and I think also Afrexim Bank is involved in industrial parks, in terms of funding. So that will help. So it means that once you come, you are just going to plug and play.
There's a plan. Okay. There's a lot of people in this room that want to have conversations with you. I know this because if you walk with Alaji, you know that everyone wants to pitch a story or an idea. And this, I meet a lot of people going, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I want to become like Aliko Dangote. So how do we become like you? What does it take? Spill the beans.
First of all, they have to understand what they are doing. You have to understand your own business. You cannot do everything by yourself. So you have to be very, very focused. You have to be, tough. Because it's not easy. Being in business is not just child's play. So you have to have the vision and right from the beginning, and also see how you can actually actualize your vision. With this, do you have any hope in Africa? Of course. You have 1.4 billion people, and most of the economies in Africa, they're actually doing extremely well. So what we need to do that's missing is actually to concentrate and pay more attention to agriculture, solid minerals. I don't like people coming to take our solid minerals to process and bring the finished product. We should try.
Exactly. That is just not. I mean, this man has really hit a lot of nails on the head.
And industrialize our continent, and that will take us to the next level.
So what's next? Are you taking a break after the refinery in terms of building anything
we are
new?
not taking. I told somebody we are not going to take any break. What we are trying to do is to make sure at least West Africa, we want to make sure that every single steel that we use will come from Nigeria.
Fantastic. Alaji, thank you so much.
Thank you
very much. It was such an honor to have you with me today, and always good to speak to you.
Thank you so much, and I must thank President Orama, the board and management of Afrexim Bank for inviting me to come here. I think it's a long journey, but it is worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that marks the end of this presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it and took note of a lot of points there. We just need to change the orientation and our mentality in Africa, all right? No success can be made by Africa without the Africans. We are the ones going to make this change. All the ingenious people in other countries are the ones making the change, the positive change for their local communities. So we Africans need to change our attitude, our mentality concerning Africa and grow just like this man. I hope you guys learned a lot of things from this video. Please remember to subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell notification, leave a relevant comment. Until next time, cheers and all the best.